Let's now go to Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster, who joins us in the third hour every Friday to break down what's happening in the economy. Bob, more and more, they say there's no way to get out of the recession that's really a depression. Here you were 3 years ago predicting what happened a year later in October of 2008. You predicted that the stimulus would run out by now, over a year and a half ago when they passed it, as well as the banker bailout, and you said that by the later end of 2010, the stimulus would run out, and that they would make the decision for another stimulus, which might extend it for another year, but the decline would still be there, just more gradual, or things would accelerate, plunging downward. Bob Chapman, give us your breakdown now.
Well, we just saw it was about 10 months ago. The bankers on Wall Street went long the dollar and short the euro. And I didn't know why at the time. We found out when Greece got in the middle of the news, along with the other unfortunate countries in the Eurozone that had problems. What the banks did when the euro got down around 120 is they covered their shorts in the euro, and they sold out their long positions in the dollar and probably reversed them, because the dollar has come right back down. It went from 74 to 89, 89 back to almost 80, and it's on its way back to test 74 again. Now, the reason I bring that up is that what they were trying to do was set up a buffer in the dollar, a place for it to fall from, not from 74, but from 89. And I think that was the main impetus behind what they did. Now, what was going to make the dollar come down? What was going to make the dollar come down was what I talked about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and that was that I believed that the Fed was going to tell the banks to start lending and shut off their interest on the money that they had deposited with the Fed. What the Fed did is they lent money to the banks at no interest. The banks lent it back to them at 2.5% interest, and the U.S. taxpayer paid for it. The banks have over $1 trillion. They can lend as much as they want against that on a fractionalized basis. Now, the Fed needs $5 trillion over the next 2 years to keep the economy from plunging. And so if the bankers have $1 trillion, all they have to do is create $4 trillion more.
So you're saying
and they have the
that
money that they need.
So, I mean, to correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that's going to be the second stimulus by stealth?
Let's call it the third, because George the idiot did the same thing. So this is the third one, really. And so this one is going to be done, but it has to be done differently, not quite by stealth, because legislature will not give the money for a stimulus package again.
My point is they're not advertising it.
Not at all. In fact, they had to have 2 votes in the Senate to get the $34 million extension for unemployment, and it was very difficult to pass. And so the Fed knows and has known for almost a year that this was going to be the track that they were going to have to take. Now, they have people working 24/7, hundreds of them figuring this stuff out. So, this doesn't happen overnight to these people.
All right, Bob, here's the $64 million question, because you've been stunningly accurate in the last 12 years on this radio show. What is this new economic policy, which is really a continuation of the old one? How is it going to affect the stock market, the economy, housing prices? What's your prognosis?
We just came from 96.86 to approximately 10,600. And that's what really keyed me in, about a month ago. I have to back into everything that these people are doing because I don't have any connections in the Illuminati. So I figured that they were discounting something that was going to happen, and the most natural thing is what I just described to you. And as it turns out, again, I was correct. This is where they're heading. And 3 trial balloons went up. The the president of the St. Louis Fed, the head of PIMCO, and I can't pronounce his name. It's an Arabic name. And the third one, that's even though I speak 6 languages, the third one was Joe Stiglitz. And so these trial balloons went up, and the balloons were saying, we got to do another stimulus package. If we don't, we're doomed. And quite frankly, they're right. But the point is, here it is. The Fed over the next 2 or 3 weeks will tell you that they're going to have to be helpful to the economy. They won't give you any numbers, and that's what they're going to do. You can call it stealth if you want, but it's on the way, and everything will go sideways for 2 years.
Okay, Bob Chapman, stay there. Let's break down your forecast. So just this slow easing into depression. We'll get details straight ahead. Bob, you said the last stimulus would last about a year. You're saying this one will go sideways for 2 years? Because I mean, sideways means we'll continue its trajectory. Our trajectory is incrementally down, and the economy really not even on life support right now with layoffs and firings. And so quantify what sideways means.
Well, first of all, I think that they're going to commit twice the amount of money and credit that they did last time, about $2.5 trillion. So that would be $5 trillion in total. And if it starts here in a couple of weeks and starts to seep into the economy over the next 3 or 4 months, then we'll compare it to what they've just done. They had 5 quarters which growth, GDP growth, in this last stimulus time frame, averaged between 3 and 3.5%. We'll say 3 1/4. Real growth was probably about 1.5%. And so the economy wasn't totally tanking, but it wasn't really doing anything. It was keeping its head above water. This time, there's going to be more lending to small and medium-sized businesses if they want the money. And you'll see a letter to the editor in tomorrow's issue of the Forecaster where one of the subscribers is an attorney. No, he's not. He's a man who owns a company. Describes that in the last 15 months, the lenders cut back over 25% the amount of money that they normally would have available for small and medium-sized businesses, which creates 70% of the jobs. Now, normally you would think, well, if the loans are going to be available, they're going to make up to 25% in lending, then we're going to have a lot more people working, and they're going to take these loans and they're going to expand, et cetera. It's not going to happen that way. And the reason why is too many of these companies have gone out of business. Too many of the people who run these companies are saying, no, we're not going to get suckered in again on this thing. And they're going to be cool about borrowing. So they're not going to get anywhere near the borrowing that they hope to over that time frame.
But, Bob, how does Iran tie in? I mean, they're really moving towards an attack by Christmas or before then, green lighting it. And, I mean, how will that affect the economy?
Well, first of all, if it's green lighted, Israel will make the attack, whether it's on Lebanon, Syria, or directly on Iran, remains to be seen. The possibilities of that happening are excellent. And how will that affect it? The Fed is going to go ahead and do what I described, I believe, anyway. And so instead of getting 3.25% growth, they might get 1.5%, including all the stimulus, when in fact the real number should have been -1%. So they're not going to go anywhere. Unemployment, which is 22 3/8%, should drop to 20%. That's the best they're going to do if they can do that. And so you might call it profitless prosperity that cost the American taxpayer $5 trillion. As far as the war is concerned, like the previous 2 conflicts, one of which is still involved in Afghanistan, it'll be off budget. We're already over $1 trillion. What'll it cost? If it's a third world war, probably another $5 trillion. And so we're going to have rampant inflation. And as you've seen, the wages go nowhere. Real inflation continues at 7 or 8%, whereas the government says it's 2 or 1.5% or whatever their bogus number is, just like the bogus number for unemployment. And so part of the unemployment problem will probably be solved if there's a third world war by shipping young people out of the country so they can go over and get slaughtered.
Well, either way you look at the different scenarios involved with an attack on Iran, it runs from horrible to just unbelievably bad. And what are your military sources telling you? Because my sources, and a lot of it's also in the mainstream news, are showing a very clear image and development towards not just a foreign war, but a massive domestic crackdown. They're really getting the public ready for troops to be used against the American people and for civil unrest. I mean, that's even in the Wall Street Journal today. So we'll come back, talk to Bob Chapman about that, open the phones up for any issues you want to discuss. Bob is a jack of all trades, been in this 50 years, fighting the globalists. We'll discuss it all coming up. Long segment straight ahead. We're back live. Bob Chapman is our guest. We're going to take some of your phone calls. Also want to look at this Bloomberg Business Week report. Gold prices extend rally as odious dollar drops versus the euro. But you notice the euro drops, then the dollar drops, and the euro goes back a little bit, and then the dollar drops, and the dollar will go back a little bit, then the euro drops, then it goes back up, then it drops. But if you look at the long-term charts, it's all just going down. It's concerted, coordinated, global currency devaluation run by the same group of crooks. Gold. You did say, 3 weeks ago on the show when gold was going down, you said look for the dollar when it starts going down for gold to go back up. And going from memory, you said that, and this has been true in the past, that normally the two were somewhat coupled together. But that now, you said this again last week, that when gold was still basically the same from the drop, that there'd been a 80% decoupling. So what does this mean, this big rally in gold the last few days?
Well, first of all, on Wednesday's issue, I said that on Thursday or Friday, we'd break back out again, and it happened today. And you just can't keep it down, because I think that the main reason that gold has been as strong as it has over the past 15 months is because it's challenged the dollar as the only real currency in the world. And that's extraordinarily important. If you go back 6,000 years, you'll see the same thing. In the first 6 months of the year, all the currencies fell against gold. The U.S. dollar, 13.3%. I mean, if that were to continue, it would be about 25% for the year, which it's been doing for the last 10 years. But, you don't know about that unless you listen to this program, because the mainline media is not going to tell you that. So it's going to go back up and challenge its high here over the next little while, which was around 1260, and it'll go through it, and it'll go higher again. The gold would have been up substantially more today had not it been for the intercession of the United States government knocking it down from a plus 15 to about a plus 680. It's now trading around a plus 8. And, they are fighting a rear guard action. They can't win, and they know that. They can't beat gold. And they're scurrying around, and they're trying to find out, should we use SDRs, which have no backing, incidentally, and can't legally have any backing as an IMF instrument, or should we have the thing that Keynes talked about called the bank core? Now, they're trying to find alternatives. Anything that they come up with that does not have gold backing, they better forget it, because it isn't going to happen.
Bob, I mean, I'm not a financial wizard, but I can look at the last 8 years and gold slowly going up, 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 up.